So the starting point for a lot of this exploration can be, am I really the one doing all of this? Where or who or what is that? And how did this all come about? How did I end up being so convinced that this I is real and it's running everything? It feels like it. And if it feels like it and it's doing it, it's still life doing that as well. It's all the same. It's all this. It's all energy interacting, intelligent energy interacting. Completely, for the human mind, mind-blowingly complex. Why looking into this can be liberating and peaceful and freeing and cause and bring happiness about, that's already there, is because the thinking mind that's always contracted and trying to force and struggle, it can never make sense of it, and it always leaves the life intention, stress, contraction, you and me, separation. Yeah, what I was saying is we have the feeling of doing it, but when that's seen through and appreciated that, it's all just life, and the personality of the character and the feeling of being I is tied with a separate body and a separate instinct for survival and an organism that does this and has to navigate in this supposed physical world and have an identity, and it's so enforced, and we have to live in a society that is based on that. That play will still happen. It's just that when it's seen that that's not based on a real entity, if it's really looked at, the entity of I, if it really is looked at, what is that? It's actually life is learning its own limitations that it's placed on itself through thought, and those diminish. It's like the opposite way around. The human being thinks it is making itself better as a separate self. But actually what's happening is life is it's an intelligent self-learning business, being. It's everywhere. I mean, you only have to look at a tree and you think, look, the tree in the grass, it knows how to grow. How does it know how to do that? So perfectly in balance and harmony and shape. It has, different trees have exactly the right shape in their leaves. And they grow and they cover each other and they look for sun. I mean, if you just look at trees and nature and animals, and you just think, my God, it's just the miracle of the intelligence of life is something the human minds generally overlook. Scientists will try and dissect it, and certain people will do that, and they get very focused on the how, and yet the very essence of it is kind of still a mystery. The human being is a bunch of cells and organisms and processes, and somehow it's stuck together like trees, and it knows how to do what it's doing. And then we've got thoughts as well. And so as human beings, we think, I'm doing this. Like the limitation that we place on this life is incredibly stifling in a way. Once again, these are all just stories from a human being in a perspective of a human being, because I'm relating to other people, other human beings. But actually, it's all life doing what it does perfectly. So even the limitations life places through the game of thinking it's a separate human being and it's controlling, it's perfectly life doing that. So all the turmoil life causes with all its little stories and limited seeing of itself, it's just still life. It's all intelligent energy, life, completely, always connected, nothing separate. Nothing separate. Everything that's actually happening that we take credit for as being I is happening anyway. So all that's happening is when we think we're doing it, somehow we sort of cause turbulence in that flow. So all that happens is that if that turbulence is not placed in there with limitations of thought, thinking I'm doing this and I have to know how to do it and I've got to do it better and I've got to change this and I've got to control it and all of that, what happens is life that's been doing it all the way, always, everything up until now, life has done it, not you. Life has done it. It knows how to do things. It learns, it changes, it adapts, it interacts. That's just life. This is all just life. Life will adapt, life will learn, and life will flow. And life will do. And the you that you think you are just keeps taking credit for it. And then, in that, it just only stifles itself to what it already knows. That way it can keep itself safe and keep the organism alive. It's basically an instinct that gets tangled up all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, I think I said on one of the other videos, when two people are looking at each other and seeing the other one as completely separate, that's just amazing. That life can do that. That life can actually see itself as separate, can play with form. This is aliveness. This is aliveness in the shape of a human body, expressing as a human being, and sensing as like a node, like an individuated perspective of itself, looking at everything else. I won't go into it too much, but there was a time walking across a field at night when, and meditation had been going on, and I'd been looking into the self, and there was a moment, a clear awakening where everything was just the same. And as this human being, I'm just relating a story through a human interpretation of it. So it's the shock and the body and the awe and the story that's coming out from this. It's not important. It's still both. It's still life doing what it's doing interactively and spontaneously, and it's completely impersonal and beautiful and full and complete. But it's also the experience of being a separate human being in that, looking at what's going on. That's part of the play. It's the same play as two human beings thinking you're separate from me, which is just a story. It's just a thought process. But gently, bit by bit, exploring this can actually lead to just a richer life, as life experiencing itself. But it's not personal. It's not I'm going to have a better life. You feel like you're experiencing a better life as this node, as this individuated perspective of life. So that's good. It's just this beautiful perspective of life experiences life a different way, experiences what it's traveling through a different way, what it's interacting with a different way. It's all life. This is a few instances of life. And it has the identification and play in separation, which is also life playing that way. It's pretty amazing, actually. And when the two can come together and still play that way, but recognise that it is just an actor, and it's seeing the whole screen and the picture and the game and the stage, and it's seeing the whole thing as awareness, that becomes more vibrant, more interesting. That's why the experience of being a human being is such, in human terms, such a gift. It's amazing, like a miracle. That's just another complexity of life that's almost like, I can't understand it as a human being. I've fortunately let go of trying to understand it all. But in that, something also opens up where it's like more is with, instead of knowing how it is. You're with more. I can't really say it any other way. There is more going on. There is more open appreciation. And in that, there's an unknowing embrace of the complexity of the life that you are. But it's not knowing it and limiting it, pulling it down to this bit, because it's just infinite.